Where I left off is I jumped on dude. I didn't hear the first gunshot, but I felt the second one, the second gunshot. This is painful. The cop shot me in the upper inner left leg. I got off the dude and looked behind because I thought maybe somebody hit me from behind. But this Africano.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
But this Africano tells me, "Hey, Diablo, you've been hit." So I reached down, and sure enough, my hand came up full of blood. I tell this other norteño to file a complete report to the NF that's in charge right there, so that he knows what happened. Now, even though the cops know I just got shot, they still strip search me. They even make me squat 3 times and cough. Then they put me on a gurney and take off running with me. But I guess they're out of shape because they ran out of air. They all got tired, and other cops replaced them. Now they finally put me in the ambulance, but because of the fog being so thick, they're driving really slow. I'm thinking, yeah, I'm going to bleed out and die in this place. They're just not going to let me live. Then I heard over the cop's radio, the cop car trailing us tell the ambulance driver to speed up, to hurry up, to get me to the hospital. They're going back and forth arguing. They're going back and forth arguing about it. The trail car says, "Look, I'm gonna pull up in front of you. You just follow my lights." I don't know who it was in that trail car, but he saved my life that day. While all this is going on, another cop tells me, "Your family is here at the prison for a visit." I said, "Man, just tell them that I can't visit because I got in trouble. Don't tell them that I got shot." And that was that. Then I woke up in the hospital. The hospital was nice. It was good food. I was eating plenty. It was in the hospital in Hanford. I'm chained up to the bed. Like I said, I was eating good. I was drinking a lot of soda, which I haven't had in years. Then this lady sergeant comes in to see me, and she starts asking me a bunch of questions about my sister. I finally asked her, "What the hell's going on?" I'm thinking maybe my sister died or something serious happened. Well, she tells me, "I don't know how your sister did it, but she's on the phone waiting to talk to you. I don't know how she got your room number or anything, but I'm gonna let you talk to her real quick, okay?" So I did. I reassured her I was okay. She told me all they told her was that I got shot, that the family has been going crazy with worry. Once I hung up, all these cops come into my room and they're acting all, it's a bunch of chaos in there. They move and they grab me and they move me to another floor. I guess for security reasons because my sister found out where I was at. After a week, I was sent back to the prison. They housed me in 4B, 1 left. I want to go back to 4B, 4 left where I got shot, so I can show them that, look, I'm still here. Nothing can stop me. Then the cop that shot me comes to see me. He asks if we're straight. I tell him, "Look, fool, as far as I'm concerned, I was doing my job and you were doing yours, so there's nothing to worry about." We left it at that. Before any of this happened, I remember, though, from time to time, the SEALs coming to my cell after a fight, giving me an extra state lunch, saying, "This is for the money you won me." Or before the fight, letting me out, they would tell me stuff like, "Hey, this dude likes to kick," or "This is a lefty," giving me the heads up on who was going to do what. That only meant that they had their money on me. Can you imagine 2 years of this, what it does to one's thinking? Not just mine, but theirs as well. All the chaos, all the things that you think that you deserve and stuff like that. And anyhow, as I'm recovering from being shot, rumors started about this new prison that was built in Pelican Bay to house the worst of the worst. That it's in the Oregon border. There's all kinds of crazy rumors. Well, because I'm still healing, I missed the first bus. But I did make the second one. Now, I've been in SHU now for 4 years. Outside of my bus ride from New Folsom to Courtroom, I haven't seen the outside world. Now I'm on a bus to a place that is going to take a 2-day ride. We are waist chained with ankles chained as well. We have been instructed to be prepared for anything, that the enemy is going to be on the bus for us, so be ready for anything to happen. I sit next to a homie. I'm by the window. I'm loving being able to see everything. People in their cars, on the highway next to us, all the houses, the stores and restaurants. We lay over in New Folsom. Next day, early in the morning, we're herded back on the bus, and here we go again. on the highway. Then we get past Frisco, up there in the mountains. It's so beautiful. And then it opens up, and I can see the ocean, something I haven't seen in a long time. These big old boulders out in the middle of the ocean. It's crazy beautiful. Then we cut back right into the middle of the forest. It's beautiful. I'm telling you, you would not believe the scenery. And then, wow, we actually drive into Oregon, take another road, and drive back into Califas. So my whole 21 years before prison, have I ever traveled to this part of Califas. It took a prison bus ride for me to see this forest. Wow. Then out of nowhere, this eyesore pops up, Pelican Bay Prison. So they herd us off the bus and line us all up again with that weak-ass welcoming speech, trying to intimidate us all. By now, I no longer care. It's just more of the same. So I get housed in C5. All I can see on my walk there is this long-ass hallway, a big old corridor that looks like it leads to nowhere. Then I can make out doors on the side. Well, we finally get to my building. There's 2 cops escorting me and one walking above me on their catwalk. They tell me that I'm in E-Pod in cell 120. I walk in the door. The door closes behind me. They open the tray slot and have me back up to it so they can take my waist chains off. I look around. I see the first cell is a shower on top and bottom tiers, and there's 4 cells on the top and 4 cells in the bottom. There's a door at the end of the pod that opens up to a small concrete yard. Then from cell 217, someone yells out, "Hey, Diablo, what's up?" It's me, Happy from San Jose and Weasel from Vaisa. I know both these carnales. I tell them what cell I'm in. They send me a care package with the Jura. Then they tell me they'll stop by in the morning on the way to yard. So they do, and they give me the rundown on what the daily routine is, and that it's just us and that pod for now, and that we are to sign up for a law library every week. That we all meet at the law library. I eventually get a celly. I go to the law library. I ask if anyone knows him. My carnal tells me, dude is no good. So I get back to my cell, and dude is gone, which pisses me off. He locked it up.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
He locked it up, got away. Yeah, I'm mad because he took my opportunity for violence away from me. So I filed my report. I spent from March of 1990 to July of 2002 in Pelican Bay SHU. Through all these years, I became more and more powerful. I was given the opportunity to run several productive street regiments from a little cell in Pelican Bay SHU. Can you imagine that? Just from a little old cell, I was running regiments on the streets. Again, some knew me as D, some as Diablo, some as Diamond D. I had a lot of money coming in. Now you might ask, how was I able to do that? It was all done through coded up letters sent out to fake pen pals, all the time being sent out by someone I instructed to do so. And that's how we conversed, from building to building, sending what looked like legal mail, but were coded messages. And then there were cops we pulled and used them as mules to send messages back and forth. I remember getting a hit list one time from a different building that cops would bring me in an envelope. I was asked by my elders to be one of the few to keep the NF's priority hit list. Now I knew I had to come up with a hell of a code that even if the cops found it, they wouldn't know what they were looking at. So I came up with my own version of hidden ink. So first, I coded up the names and the numbers along with the year they went bad, and then I transferred it all into invisible ink. This idea was so simple that no one would figure it out. While all this is going on, there's fights happening. A lot of the cops write it up as they inadvertently open the wrong door. So their answer to this was to padlock the cell doors shut. Well, that didn't work. out in their favor.
And the reason that was is because we got some real smart minds or legal minds on our side. The word was that we figured out a way to open our own doors using wire, but I never tried it. I didn't have to. I didn't have to do it. They did it for me, so I don't know whether or not that was true. Anyhow, by now, I have climbed the ladder again. I was made one of 7 enforcers for the NF. I stopped running regiments now, and any time someone was to be killed, I would be one of the ones to try and sell up with dude and kill him or really hurt him. I have already had several violent altercations on the tier and in my cell. One time, on my way back from yard, and after I stripped for the control booth, he inadvertently opened the wrong cell door, and I ran in on 2 enemies. It was a good fight. I remember I put my boxers back on, grabbed my clothes in one hand and my shoes in the other, and as I turned toward my cell, my enemy's door opened. I threw my shoes at one and started fighting with the other. As I said, it was a good fight. At another time, they inadvertently again opened my door. Dude didn't run in, so I ran out on the tier and beat him under the stairs.
Esta llamada y su número de teléfono será controlada y grabada.
What's funny about this one is his plaquiazo was boxer, it just seemed funny to me that he couldn't fight. Now, before I go any further, let me take you back to when I got shot with the 9mm at Courtroom shoe. 2 things I forgot to mention. One was I was charged with great bodily injury, a GBI. Yeah, who did I think I was getting shot, destroying the state property? 2, I was crippled to a certain degree. I was left walking around all slumped over like the Hunchback of Notre Dame and left in a lot of pain. And still, I was fighting the enemy every time the door inadvertently opened at the bay. And I was purposely selling up with homies that were labeled as no good. I have by now become the propaganda I'm feeding these youngsters, that the whole idea that we don't stop, that no matter what, we keep pushing forward. Others were using me as an example. They were saying, if Diablo can do it, then so can you. I became the catalyst for violence. And yeah, it boosted my ego. I enjoyed being the poster child for violence. How crazy was that? I was schooled and prepped to kill a certain carnal. Then all of a sudden they decided to let this carnal parole to the calles, kill another carnal on the streets. And then when he would come back, I would kill him. When he came back, though, he decided not to have anything to do with us. So I get another cellie. I beat this dude to damn near death. They had to pepper spray me 4 different times in the face to get me to stop. I can barely see and breathe. Dude looks dead. He's just laying there. I'm covered in blood. My hands are so swollen and cut up. They put me in the shower, put dude on a gurney, and take him. Well, before I'm able to file my report to my elders, there's all kinds of rumors going around. Of course, they all make me look good. The more evil they make me sound, the more they fill me with pride. And then we want to complain because society calls us animals. Ain't that funny? Anyhow, the district attorney surprises me by filing an attempted murder charge against me. I guess he got tired of seeing my name come across his desk. I don't mind it. All it means to me is that I get a field trip. I get to see the outside world. I've been in Pelican Bay shoe now for 10 years. So it would be nice to see what life looked like outside these walls. I, of course, plead not guilty, but it works out for me because there's a few young Norteños going to court as well. I give them my name and tell them who I'm NF. I start schooling them and tell them what is expected of all Norteños. Every few weeks, we run into each other in Crescent City Courthouse, holding cages. There's also a few Africanos going with us. Well, I get word that one of the Africanos is going to court with us through Carnal. They tell me which one. I talk to the BGF who's also going to court with us. I tell him about this dude. Out of respect, I have to tell him what my plans are. I then tell these youngsters that I don't want them to get involved, that I'm going to rush this Africano. I'm in waist chains and leg irons. I slowly get my waist chains over my hips and pull my legs through them. I now have the waist chains bunched up in my hands with the padlocks hanging. BGF looks at me. Then, to my surprise, he rushes the other Africano, pinning him against the wall. Perfect. I start hitting dude. I'm swinging these locks like I'm swinging an axe. I'm not going to get too much into the details about all this. It was an ugly scene. When they took the chains off of me for evidence and stretched them out on the floor to take pictures of them, you could see pieces of meat, hair, and blood all over them. All I thought about at this moment was, how can I get a copy of those pictures so I can send them to the Carnal as a gift to show him what I did for him? Yeah, that's how sick I was at that time.
Esta llamada y su número de teléfono será controlada y grabada.
At that time, well, needless to say, the court dropped both these cases to assault and fined me $200 for each one. Their lives were only worth $200. Can you imagine that? This one hyena I had at the time paid the fines off, and that was that. Now, at this point in my life, I have about 16 years in shoe straight. I have seen us do a lot of good, like educate our people, both scholastically and culturally. But like every gang you will ever come across, if it doesn't have a war to feed off of, then it does the only thing it knows how. It feeds off of itself. We start creating new rules to fail by. We start abusing our own, both in prison and on the streets. We start killing youngsters for making mistakes and overlooking peers for teaching them it's okay. I'm getting in trouble for taking youngsters off the hit list and in trouble for putting regiment leaders on the hit list. There's other carnales campaigning against me by now. Some think I moved up the ladder too fast. Others, all of a sudden, don't think I should be a carnal at all. This is devastating to me. On top of all this, I got a hyena who is promising me the world if I leave the gang. Life and my mom is telling me all she wants from me is that I give her the opportunity to hold me before she dies. This is really creating chaos in my head. All of this is going on simultaneously. This life used to be so easy. I didn't have to consider my emotions. I didn't have to consider other people's emotions. I just had to be creative, figure out how to make weapons and attack the enemy. Nothing else really mattered. I didn't even care that I was going to be indicted by the federal government on the RICO Act in San Jose. The only reason they changed their minds was because their main witness was caught in a bunch of lies. By now, I'm learning about the Turning Point Prep program to use their education against them. I learned the word empathy and what it meant. This on top of everything, the gang and its in-house fighting, my mother, my daughter, this hyena, all the guilt, all the shame I've been feeling like forever. The fact that I finally started to realize I am smart, which made me realize that I like a coward, been running and hiding my whole life from asking for help for fear that others will find it weak, from seeking an education for fear that others will realize how stupid I was. I did what pleased others for fear of not being accepted. I'm starting to think like this because the NF taught me to analyze all sides of a situation, that I couldn't make life and death decisions without an open mind and considering all possibilities, including the future, which we called having foresight. You can't run a regiment in prison or on the streets without some foresight. Yes, it's like running a business. Am I promoting prison gangs for an education? Hell no. I'm simply telling you what got me to this point in my life. Now, every year we go in front of a classification committee, which usually seats a captain, a lieutenant, a psychologist, a counselor, and your floor staff. I go every year only to make them do some work. Every year it's the same crap. They tell you why you're still in shoe, like I didn't already know. But at the end, right before they dismiss you, they ask, do you want to debrief? Now, right before I entered this room, I decided to drop out. So all I'm concentrating on is hearing those words. I'm not listening to nothing else. Then they say, okay, De Leon. The cop grabs my arm to escort me out. I finally say, aren't you going to ask me if I want to debrief? All of a sudden, all the movement stopped. The captain says, do you? I said, hell yeah. They just stare at me for a moment, like they don't know what to do. They put me in a cage. Then here comes the IGI, Institution Gang Investigators. Now I'm starting to question my decision to drop out. You're probably asking, why didn't you do this way back when?
Le queda un restante de 60 segundos.
Well, I was about 23 years old when I finally made it to prison. You're probably asking, why didn't you do this way back when? Well, I was about 23 years old when I finally made it to prison, which was back in 1987. And nobody liked dropouts back then. There was no difference between a dropout or a rapist. Not even the cops liked dropouts. And to some degree, they still don't. But back then, the cops who worked around you would tell you who went bad. They would say things like, why did your homie so and so, he cowered up? Statements like that would piss me off. But you also had cops that worked for us. They would run makes on people for us. They would drop off huilas for us. They would drop off pedazos for us. They didn't know necessarily what they were dropping off, but they would still be dropping them off, what they were passing. But they did know it was something in fact. In fact, one time a homie got careless and picked the wrong huda to pass me a hit list, which had about 100 names on it. It was updated hit list. The cop brings it to me and then cuffs me up and gives me a rule violation for accepting a hit list through legal mail. But anyhow, I know the mentality and propaganda about dropouts. All of this tells me better off where I'm at. You don't see or feel the hate, the anger, the tension, or the envy we live in daily. This is what influences our daily choices. You learn early on that the biggest gang in CDCR itself, and that's exactly how they act and think. They are not here simply to help you. No, they want payment. If you don't have what they want, then they'll tell you to come back after you got.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
Anyhow, IGI tells me we need to know that you're serious. I tell him, you know I've already come too far to go back. I told them, in fact, the floor cop already went back and told the homies in the building that I'm here talking to you. They tell me they need more than that. I tell them, how about I draw a map to where all my pedazos are hidden? They agreed. So I draw them the map. The map. They came and gave me a rules violation for possession of 32 pedazos and weapon stock. They told me not to worry. The rules violation was only there to hold over my head so I wouldn't lie about anything. They tell me to write an autobiography of all that I've done for the NF. Then they stop talking when a lieutenant comes in and tells me that the state can't touch me. I'm like, what is it? Well, they explain that the feds have power over me, that I have to wait on them. About a week later, the feds come to see me. They read me my rights and that I am being charged with promoting violence to facilitate the advancement of an organized crime. I'm being driven back and forth to the courthouse in Frisco and the Bay. As I'm going through this, I get a legal letter from an attorney in the Los Angeles area. He tells me that he represents Chuy Martinez, one of the MS gang leaders. I know Chuy. We have had a few fights during the corporate shoe gladiator fight. He wants to know if I would be willing to testify in Chuy's favor. You see, Chuy is an MM member who was arrested for murders for the MM. Why would he be asking me of everybody? I automatically think this is a setup by the NF to get the opportunity to kill me. Yeah, I'm still stuck on stupid, so I accept the challenge, and I accept the attorney's request. Feds are indicting me anyhow, so why not? I eventually get called out to court for Chuy. The drive is beautiful. It's a long ass drive. They drive us to Lerdo Federal Hub right here in the Tulare County area. I'm on the bus with dudes I know are straight up killers. Two of them are ABs. I need to keep my eyes on both these dudes. We actually know each other from when I was active. Yeah, they're probably more dangerous than me. Well, we get there with no incidents, and we are separated. I like the bus ride back from court because the bus ride is at night. Now, after 16 years in SHU, this is the first time I'm out on the streets at night. So what that I'm all chained up? I am out at night. The lights of cars passing, the buildings, the stars, and the moon. I am loving all this. It's amazing. I don't think I'm doing my description of all this justice. But yeah, I'm testifying for Chuy. I'm telling the jury all about the Courtroom gladiator fights. It took about a month. Then we were done. I figured, okay, it'll happen on my bus ride back to the Bay. Well, they put us all in different cages in the bus. Then they put a sureño in the cage with me. I figure, okay, this is what they're gonna do. This is a setup. I thought it was. I figure I'll let dude make his move, then I'll come up. So the bus takes off. I'm waiting for dude and nothing. The ABs keep staring my way. Yeah, they're anticipating something as well. I'm getting tired of waiting. Then I look over at dude, and this fool is straight up asleep. I look over at the ABs, and
this call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
I look over at the ABs, and we both laugh. It's funny. I left dude alone. I didn't do nothing to him. He was no threat to me. I'm sure his people back at the Bay will deal with him, because I know these ABs will let the MN know, and of course the NF, and the NF as well. Well, I get back to the Bay, and I'm convicted to 5 years. It took them 2 years to debrief me. I'm finally going out to the line. Sure, it's a FNY line, but hey, it's a line. I'm trying to go to Mule Creek or Courtroom. They tell me I can't because I have enemies there. So I investigated, and sure enough, other NF dropouts listed me as an enemy. You see, if they list enemies in all the other pintas, they have to leave them there. They can't transfer them. So they like where they're at, so that's what they do. Yeah, they liked it there. So much so they didn't want to be transferred. Plus, I'm sure there are a few NF dropouts that were scared. I may be a sleeper. A sleeper is one that gives up fake information to get to an FNY yard so he can try and kill a dropout. Anyhow, I tell staff, just transfer me anywhere. I'll go to any FNY yard. I couldn't wait to get closer to home so I can start getting visits from my family, my daughter, my mother. I can finally give my mom a big hug. And then there was this girl who has been spoiling me with money, packages, and visits. I'll finally get closer to her as well. Now, before we get into my life on the FNY side, let me tell you stories about situations I've seen, but probably was not involved in. For example, when I first got to Old Folsom, I actually tried to get on the handball court to play. Well, needless to say, they all stopped playing and just stared at me. I quickly accepted the fact that I was unwanted. That was a heavy blow to my ego. I would have preferred that they just whooped my ass and left me all stabbed there. Feeling that kind of embarrassment was ugly. I already lacked self-esteem and self-confidence. Back in '87, we were still allowed weights, and the weight pile was on the smaller yard. So I go there just to check it out. It's my first time in prison, so I'm going to check it out. Well, just my luck. The white boys are cleaning their backyard, meaning that they are dealing with one of their own. Why, I don't know. But this Raza tells me leave, gonna jump. And as he tells me this, Agaba dropped the dumbbell on dude's head as he was laying on the bench lifting weights. I don't know if dude died or not, but that was the first time I ever witnessed something so ugly. Now, did this scare me away from gang life? No. It had the opposite effect on me. It scared me deeper into the gang. You see, in the county, we crippled one of our own for going bad. These white boys ripped off one of their own for going bad. So I better not go bad. That's all I thought. And these types of incidents were a good reason why. They happened a lot. I knew Folsom Shoe. In New Folsom Shoe, there were cops who went around bullying inmates. Majority of the time, they bullied Africanos. They all wore black gloves. That's how everybody knew who they were. They would sometimes run in on a cell at about 1 or 2 in the morning, beat dude up, and leave. Then there was that time in either in New Folsom Shoe or Courtroom Shoe. No, it was New Folsom Shoe, where they shot this Africano in the cell because he was involved in a cell fight with his cellie. The thing was that everybody knew this Africano was on single cell status. He couldn't have a cellie. So how was that possible? Then there was the what they called the butt bandit in Courtroom Shoe. It was this big Africano who had a history for raping his cellies. Well, there was this disruptive young Africano. So the cops decided to teach this youngster a lesson by throwing him in the cell with the booty bandit. Well, needless to say, the youngster was raped. I'm not telling you all this to excuse our behavior as gang members. I'm sure these cops doing dirt didn't start that way. Just like we weren't born criminals or gang members. I'm sure them, like us, were consumed by the negativity in which we lived and surrounded us. This is what becomes of innocence when it's not emotionally educated to handle these emotions. My daily survival in this madness confused me into believing that this lifestyle was my fate.
You have 60 seconds remaining.
There was this one time me and the tower cop had words, and this cop exchanged places with the floor cop. He then cuffed me up and took me to an office in the rotunda. I was sent into the rotunda. This is going to be bad for me. But then this cop, he took his cuffs off, and he took my cuffs off, and we went at it. It was a good fight, but I'm not going to lie. I lost. I lost pretty bad. But according to the homie, that was a good thing that I lost. Because if I would have won, then more cops would have ran into our section and tore ourselves up. And maybe found our weapon stash, not to mention all the personal property they would have took or threw away or messed up. So during the search, and yes, I was again disciplined. I had to do 250 burpees this time after our regular workout. That's when I learned that we do not sell soldier, nor do we do anything to bring any heat to us from the cops. That's one of the things I liked about us. We were very military structured. I would say more about Courtroom Shoe, but let's face it, I live here now. So if you want to know more about the Courtroom gladiator fights, I'm sure you can Google it. Please don't confuse it with that movie they supposedly made of it, because if that's what it was supposed to be, well, all I can tell you is that movie was one hell of a watered down version. In fact, I still have every single rules violation for every fight in Courtroom shoe for those who question my validity. I've seen a bunch of homies lose their minds and go crazy in shoe, especially in Courtroom shoe. One of my neighbors, in fact, in Courtroom shoe, a youngster from Stockton, he was about to go home in 30 days. He was so short to the house that I ordered him not to go out of his cell to the yard and fight anymore. We didn't want to lose his life over a simple fight. Well, he hung himself and died because his girl left him for another homie. Yeah, he let me read the Dear John letter. We talked about her and that he would find himself another one in 30 days, that he just didn't have to trip, it'd be all right. Well, that night he committed suicide. It got to me. After all the commotion from the suicide and everything, the following day I still went out to yard and continued with my routine of fighting. And yes, I was a little more callous. You see, it's things like this and no one to talk to that become the building blocks to the monster I was. As I mentioned earlier, I was shot in Courtroom shoe, which kind of crippled me in that I couldn't straighten up. I walked around all hunched over in pain. But I welcomed this pain simply because it was a relief to my emotional and psychological pain. It felt good to escape all of my guilt, all of my shame, all of the loss, all the trauma I caused my victim, her daughter, her parents, her siblings, and her future. I was finally getting what I deserved, and this pain was it. Even in this physical condition, I had a daily 2-hour workout routine, and in this condition I continued to violently attack others. So much so that I became the poster child for it. The word was, if Diablo can do it in his condition, then why can't you? And I accepted this as a compliment. Yeah, that's how twisted I was. And used it as well as part of the propaganda I indoctrinated youngsters with. Along with, as Raza, we stick together, we protect each other, we have gone as far as help pay homies rent. So it's not just about making the homies feel indebted to us. If we'll make single mothers or their sisters feel indebted as well. Now, don't get me wrong. The gang taught me a lot. People have asked me, don't you regret being a gang member? Don't you regret all those years in shoe? I have to say no, because those are the reasons I am who I am today. In fact,
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
In fact, I still use some of the same disciplines, the qualities from back then today. I just use them for positive reasons now and in a positive lifestyle. I would love to have started a camp using those same disciplines qualities. Now, on a similar note, I want you to know and understand that all the gang leaders and all the gang members have the same, if not more, of the same fears and issues you have at this moment. If they tell you that, then it's because they are still hiding from them. All we are is hurt people hurting people. Yeah, I know you'd like for it to mean more, and it can. You have the power to make it so. Be courageous, be vulnerable, and ask for help. I can't blame anyone for all the crap I have lived through. Why? Because at the end of everything, I made those choices. I can go back throughout my life and tell you about people who offered me better choices, but they were either hard or not cool enough. But the choices were there for me, just like I know they're there for you. I know it to be a fact. How? Because both me and my little brother and I grew up side by side. His life was no different than mine, except he made better choices than I did. He is now a retired sergeant major from the Army and is living a great life with his wife and sons in Florida. So choose my life or his life. I know you probably hear that a lot of the time from people who don't know what our life is like. Well, I'm still here, working on hoping one day the parole board will no longer see the monster I used to be and see me for who I am now. No longer a threat to society, but an asset to the community. When I dropped out, as I stated earlier, it was one of the hardest decisions I ever made. I even got physically sick. I'm talking about feverish and the shakes. This went on for days. but it was okay. I was still in shoe. And then there were those days I felt like going back. I have received 2 requests to go back, and no, I didn't consider them for too long. I've also had 2 sleepers come looking for me. Their list had 5 dropout names to pick from. Me and another homie on that list were there at the time. I was still stuck in my old way of thinking, so me and homeboy walked up on them, pulled out our pieces, introduced ourselves, and gave them a choice. They decided to leave the yard. I'm sure they're on an SNY yard somewhere by now. I have done a lot of hard work on myself to become happy with who I am. Today, it wasn't easy, but it's well worth it. I have 35 years in prison. I am a first-termer. I have a lot of scars, but very few of them are the same ones that got me locked up. I now call myself a man of service. Before this COVID, I facilitated 4 self-help programs, and I have helped create and implement 3 others. This is who I am today. Now, do you or your kids have issues? Hell yeah, everybody does. There's no perfect family. We are all flawed. The difference is how we deal with our issues. If we hide from them and don't deal with them, then they are simply going to build up and one day explode, and you'll find yourself in a cell next to me. Well, as I was stating, I was looking forward to being sent to an SNY near all my loved ones. But no, instead I was sent to Calipatria. The ride was off the hook. The scenery was beautiful. First we laid over in New Folsom. The next day we laid over in Courtroom. The next day we laid over in Chino. Then we finally made the last trek to Calipatria. It was torture. All we ate for breakfast, lunch, and for dinner were peanut butter sandwiches. It's a miracle we didn't end up all constipated. Okay, so we finally get there. I step out of the bus, and the heat damn near knocked me on my ass. I was definitely not ready for this. Well, I get into the orientation building. Every worker, inmate is stopping by my cell asking who I am and where I'm from. I still have that NF chip on my shoulder, so I tell them I'm Diablo from the NF, and they run off. Next morning, a homeboy, Soldado from Oakland. I've known him forever. I remember when he dropped out about 5 years earlier. Anyhow, he set down a care package at my door and hands me $300 worth of dope and tells me he'll see me on the yard in the morning. By the time that day ended, I had $300 worth of goodies, food, and hygiene at my front door. Can you imagine how easy that was? That same day. That's the life we live in here. The following day.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
The following day, he takes me around introducing me to gente, and most of them are all M. I said, where the hell are all the homies? He tells me we're the only 2 on this yard. I'm easily acclimating to this environment, including the people. I found it surprising how we all got along and kicked it with each other. These were warriors just like me, who at one time